Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's your host, Robert Taylor. Last time we went over UVs, showed you the things that I utilize, and provided you with a link of where I learned more about UVs because UVs aren't something I fully understand. Now, we're going to go to something that I understand way more, and that's making this landscape look a little more like a proper landscape. Now, what I mean by that is the fact that if you looked out in the world and you looked at a giant scene of a picture with a bunch of landscape, the whole landscape doesn't look exactly the same uh, color wise. So all the grass doesn't look the exact same tint of green, all the rocks don't look the exact same tint of gray or brown, and we're going to go over changing that. We're also going to go over changing and manipulating the actual color of each individual tile so that if you don't want this yellowish hue but you want more of a bluish hue, you can do it, or if you want a purple hue or a green hue, whatever. We're going to go over how to alter all of this for your pleasure. So to begin with that, here we are. I'm going to grab this and move it all the way over. And I'm just going to move this over here because we're about to do a lot. I may not have moved it enough to begin with, but this is how we'll start. Now then, from here, we're going... Sorry, I need to open up my notes. To set up what I like to call color control. So first things first, right click and type desaturation. So obviously desaturation removes the color of the material. Now it's black and white. There's no color to it whatsoever. What we want to do next is put what is called a 1 minus node. So what this does is it reverses the math that we do. So 1 is 0 and 0 is 1. Hit S, hold it down, and change it to saturation. So when I put it in here, it's still black and white. So honestly, now that I think about it, it should be desaturation. Because when we put it to 1, it's saturated. 0.5, it's a little more on the gray side, but it's still showing some of its color that was at 1. But when you go to 0, none of it's there. So you're able to change it at will. So now when you go into the extremes, it starts to look different colors, which is interesting. So from there, if we do saturate, it's free, doesn't cost anything. And it keeps it between 0 and 1 at all times. So theoretically what that means, now when I go to -1, it should, but it doesn't. And that's just with the saturation node. Not sure, the desaturation node, sorry. Not sure why, that's just how it is. So that's not needed here, but it will be needed later. And I will show off the difference between saturated and not saturated at that point. So the next thing we want to do is the color brightness. So I'm going to change this back to 1. So how bright do we want these browns? That's essentially what we're asking ourselves. If I click here, hold down M and click, you get the multiply. If you hold down Control and click on there, you'll be able to pick up and drag it. If you just click on it, it'll go away. Nothing special about it. So obviously multiply of 1, nothing's changed. because 1 is normal. So if we go here, go with brightness, move it in, it's black because you've turned the color off. 1, it's back on. 2, it's brighter. And to go into the extremes, you can see that it just continues to get bright. Now then from there, we have what I like to call color contrast. Sometimes I feel like I put it in the wrong place. We may mess around with it here to see if me putting it somewhere else will work better. But regardless, for now, from here we'd use the power node. Nope, wasn't sure. Right click, type in power. Now we put this in here. For those that want to know more about power, returns the base value raised to the power of exponent base value must be positive. Values less than 0 will be clamped. So right now it's at 2. So if we look at it, looks interesting, doesn't it? This is the contrast. If we put it to 0, it's white. Put it to 1, it's the color it's supposed to be. 2 makes it, eventually it'll get to black. So essentially you'd want to keep it between 0 and 1. It's essentially just a whiteout, which is really what contrast is. So naturally it's at 1. Now, for the fun stuff. We are going to tint. To tint is another multiply. We bring that here. But we're not multiplying like we did here with this. We will hold down the V key, V is in Victor, and click down, and you will get a parameter vector. So we will name this color tint and hook this up right there. Now if I just put this in, it's now black because every single one of these was 0. Now if you're at 1, clearly, obviously, you're back to where you were at. So if you go 1.5, starts changing the colors in a more prominent way than saturation. So if we put this like that, as you can see now, the stone is white instead of gray. Well, they're still gray, but you know what I mean. If I put this to 1, oh, I was clicking the wrong thing. I was so confused there for a second. Put red to 2, or even 1.1, 1.2. You can see it's starting to change itself. So put this back to 1. Then we have the input color tint influence. So for that, there's lerp. This isn't necessarily necessary, but I have it because of what we're going to do after this. It makes it easier, and it gives just a little more, control over this whole thing. So to make this extreme, I'm going to make red 10. And then I'm going to make a new parameter called tint influence. It's currently at 0. What's 0? 0 is A. 1 is B. And it starts off there. So at point 1, this is less of an influence. So it's even weaker now than it was before at point 1. But it gives you more control. Makes it look, oops, I'm at 1.9, a bit nicer, a bit more natural. Gives you exactly what you need control-wise. Just more precision. And that is the nutshell for the color control of the entire landscape to look identical. So as of right now, there would be no difference outside of maybe it being slightly tinted a different color. Now it's slightly redder. That's all that is going on right now. So it doesn't do anything for the tiling, the very noticeable tiling. So before I continue, I'm going to, no, we're doing functions later, and I will explain that in great detail then. So let's continue on with what we're doing. So the first thing we want to do is, sorry, looking at the notes real quick. First thing we want to do is control the height. So the color change will change based off of height, which makes sense if you are, say, living in the mountains, you're in a nice green valley, and the higher up the grass goes, the more yellow it gets because it gets less grass and it's colder, so it is essentially going into fall and winter sooner than it is down in the valley. So that is important. It's necessary, and it just brings the visuals up in magnitude a significant amount. So for this, we need the absolute world position. Whoops, that's right, you can't find it through absolute, which is weird. And then we need the component mask. Now, we already know that RNG is X and Y, so north, south, east, and west. B is height, blue, Z-axis. You can see right here, up and down. And that's what we need in order to control the color change based off of height. Now we're going to pull out and type remap value range. So this allows you to control where the highest point is and where the lowest point is. The target low, if we just type push down the number 1, click, we'll get a variable here. Put it into value low, and that just stays at 0. Do it again, put this one at 1, and that makes it 1. These two will make sense in a second. Input low is what we control. So we're going to make this a parameter, and I'm going to name this terrain low point. Then get another one and name this terrain high point. So here's where these make sense. This control puts everything that's in these numbers between 0 and 1. So the terrain's low point, if we click on this, on location, the low point right now is 4,730, if I am correct. I could be very wrong. If we come over here, yes, I am very much wrong. So it's not the low point. The low point is probably 0. We'll find out as we go. Anyways, it then puts all of our information between 0 and 1, and we control this to control high and low, and it'll make a great deal of sense in a moment. So, the next thing we want, sorry, again, I am trying to make sure that I get everything set up correctly. So from there, the next thing we're going to do is create what's called the tint controls. At least that's what I call it. And that's what controls everything, how the coloring will work. So for this, we'll start with the saturate node, because we want to saturate everything, make sure that we keep everything between 0 and 1, and then make a lerp node. Now, you can either type lerp or hold down the L key and put it in there and it'll just show up. So this will go into here after we create something new, which we'll get in a second. So now we come here to this, and this goes right in there. So that's the coloring that we all did, and that goes right to this, right here. Now, from here, we will get a multiply. And then from there, a saturate. And from here, an add. Pull this over. Then from this add, we will do yet another saturate. Saturates are free, so there's no harm in utilizing it to ensure perfection. And then type in multiply. Okay. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Then from here in this alpha, we will type in here landscape color mask strength. For now, we will put you at 1, which is the top. Now from here at B, we'll do another saturate. And then this goes right in here to the multiply. Now this goes right. Nope, we need a curve first. So I'll type in here curve atlas row parameter. We will make this landscape curve. Now we'll go over everything for this in a moment. This goes right in here like that, and this goes right in here. Now then, from here, we will type in, oh, silly me, S, and put tint strength. And for now, we will put this at 1. I know there's a lot of confusing math going here, but essentially it'll make sense once you can visually see it. Now then, from this add, we'll pull down and do a 1 minus node. So essentially reversing what's about to happen. And then we will come here, hit multiply. I find 0.5 gives a more appealing effect for me, but you can play with this how you wish. And now it's all connected exactly how it should. Yada yada. Now for this, you may be wondering, what in the world is going on? This won't work as it stands. It's missing two things, an atlas and a curve. So we're going to come here, I'm going to right click and put a new folder, and I'm going to call it landscape color curves. Right click, come in here, I believe, let's find it here, it's in textures maybe. Somewhere in here there's an atlas. So if I come here, click on this, I don't think there's the mannequin atlas, that's funny. I can't remember where I found it. And that just makes me silly. So we are looking for this together. Ah, okay, here it is. It's in miscellaneous. Curve atlas. Click on this, and I'm going to name it C for curve, no, CA for curve atlas, underscore landscape curve atlas. You can name it whatever you want, that's what I choose to name it. So when I click on this, that glows, and you place it here. As it stands right now, it's not doing anything. If we open it up, we need to create a curve. Nothing's working right now. So come over here, miscellaneous, curve. You're going to choose linear color curve. Select. And I'm going to do C for curve, underscore, and I'll call this one rock curve. Sorry, rock 01 curve. And from there, I'll place that right there and save. Now if I come here, I come over here, and I can now select this. Now, we hit save. Doesn't look like anything's happened. If I come over here to the instance, where are you? Huh. Oh, silly me. I haven't connected it, so of course it's not going to show up. Now we click on this. You look at this. There's darker, there's lighter, and that's because I haven't set this up. So as a default, let's put this at 12,000. Now it looks like it's all dark. Hit save. Let it do its thing. As you can see, this is lighter, this is darker. It may be hard to tell though. So if we come here, come to tint strength, put 2, look at that. There's the height color difference right there, ladies and gentlemen. And you'll see that at this point it's starting to slowly fade into the brighter. So with that in mind, if we come here to the curve, we can alter this how we see fit. So if I click here on this, double click on it, I'm going to change this to a more bluish gray. As you can see, the color is changing as it should for the most part. If I go crazy blue, obviously now it's going to show crazy blue. And right now, because this has color, it's altering this color. So if I changed this desaturation, I put you to 0, it's now more of a deep blue. You're seeing the changes. So I'll do that. Come back here to the curve, and then if I click on this right here, double click on it, it provides you with this new control. Now you may be wondering, what does it do? If I grab it and I hold on to it and I move it over, and right here I let go, it changes how quickly that's changing. Bring you back to here. Now, with that in mind, if I were to then do this and this, hit OK, double click again. As you can see, now there are 3 different colors. And it's all doing this through height, through this curve, through this atlas, and then utilizing it, the strength, increasing how this looks. And that is just height. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to add slope. So the color will change based off of this slope. So for this, we will, I knew it wasn't enough. Actually it is. We will move this over here. And we will hold down A, place that here for when we add it later. And now we're going to show slope. If I right click and I just type slope mask, this works. And it does what it needs to do. I have my own slope math that will show for the masks when going between, grass, dirt, and rock for the cliffs and all that stuff. But for something like this, it doesn't need to be as extreme. It doesn't need to be as precise. Well, it still is precise. It doesn't need to look prettier, because what it's meant to do, it's doing. And that's just to alter and change the color. So this works perfectly. So from here, all we're going to control is the fall off power and the cheap contrast. So hold down S, click, and put in here slope fall off. I'm going to place that right here. And for now, I'm going to put the value at 4. And then do it again and name it slope contrast. And for now, I'm going to put this at 0.3 and place that right here. Now then from here, put in the 1 minus. And the reason for that is if we don't, then the black, what's supposed to be on the flat is going to be on the cliffs and vice versa. And obviously that's not what you want. Just ridiculous, right? So then from there, constant bias scale. Click on this. It gives you bias and scale of 1 and 0.5. I don't fully understand how it works. But when I was looking around and trying to figure out how to better control the slope mask, I came across this nifty little node. And for me, I put this to negative 0.5 and 2. Now for you, you may want to alter this for your own liking. This is something that you can alter for your own projects. Afterwards, I would suggest that way you're not seeing anything out of the ordinary. These parameters I found have worked best for me and how I want my projects. At this point, we now bring out a multiply, so hold down M and click. Then from here, we put, oh, sorry, just hold down S to do this. Slope, height, bias. Place that here. Nope, wrong one, I forgot. S does not bring in a saturate node. So it keeps everything between 0 and 1. And now we add it together and then saturate it. But before we do that, I just want to show what it's doing. Oops. Now if I come here, put this to 1, voila. It's making the darker parts dark and the lighter parts light. So for those that are trying to be as cheap, I say this in a nice way, the cheapest way possible, meaning they want to use as little resources as possible, and they're going super low poly, and they don't care about the physical design of it all. They care about the coloring. They could quite literally get away with just doing something like this, using nothing but this and this to paint their whole world with just one material, and they'd be done. It would be super easy, it'd be super cheap, it would work. But anyways, this is how it looks. Come down here. Now what happens when I change it to 2? 3, 20, nothing happens. It sticks between 0 and 1. So for now, I'll put this at 0.3 because that is what I wish. And then from there, because we want this to happen equally, so we don't want one to have priority over the other, we add. We could lerp. Lerp would work very well. But for this specifically, we're just going to go with add. So I'll put this here. Get another saturate. Bring this to here. And now I'll hit save. Let the shader do its magic. And here you go. You can see that this lighter color, this white, is what's right here, but it's shading here. And this yellow that's up here is shading here. So it helps bring in transition. So that being said, if we come here to this, and I put this to 1, just in case you didn't see it, there it is, 1, 2, 50. Come here, it's currently a ridiculous solid line. Put this back to 0.3, and now it makes it more natural. If we change this to 5, 6, this is where we get the creeping. So where we can change the whole thing. For now, I'll keep it a 4. Slight slope, height, bias. 0, obviously it removes what we did. 1 makes it an extreme on making sure that we see it. Now if we get back up here closely, you can see it's transitioning all 3 of the colors. 0.5. It's not. So the strength of the slope height bias controls quite a bit, showing you what shows up here. So now it's looking immensely better, but there's no noise. So it's still not natural, or, it still doesn't look as natural as it could. Ergo, a really cool node that I discovered a couple years back that I have not been able to let go. The noise node. So here we are. We have all of this. We'll move this over. And now we will start making randomization through noise. So again, we need another world position. Hold down A and click for an add. And now I will put what I call the noise seed. So you're able to control the shape and the location of the noise. So I'll hold down V, like this, and I will just put landscape color noise. And for now, I'll just keep this at 1, 1, 1. You place that in here. And we'll better explain how this works by coming down here. So move along X, move along Y, and because it can't move along B, or Z rather, it can still change the shape. So change shape. And the reason it can do that is because the absolute world position, so it changes the shape. And I'll go into immense detail with that as soon as we're able to see it. So from there, we get a divide node. And then we're going to create the size. So the size of the noise, so noise size. And I'm going to put this at a default of 500. And then we come to that cool node I was talking about, the noise node. So to learn more about the noise node, you can easily go to Ben Cloward's YouTube. I've linked him before. He's got a lot that goes over a lot of cool stuff. But while I was trying to figure out how to use the noise node, he helped me to best understand how it works. Because it can be expensive if used incorrectly. So the scale I keep at 1 because I control the scale through this. The function I change to gradient computational. Turbulence we leave checked. I put it at a level of 10. I put the output minimum at 0. The output max stays at 1, and the level scale stays at 2. From there, come here and I choose the component mask. Now you can choose R, G, or B. I simply choose G, so so R, G, and B have different noise appearances. It's still the same math, still doing the same thing. It just changes how it looks throughout. So if you want it to be R or B, it's irrelevant. So then we come here, hold down L and click to get a lerp node. I'll put the alpha here, and then we do some really cool math. I'm going to hold down S, click this, and in this parameter, I'm going to click noise negative slider and put it at a base of -1. For the next one, I'm going to put noise positive slider, and I'm going to put it at 1. So the reason for this, and it's really cool, is this creates the noise size. If I make it smaller, then the noise will be smaller, but if the spot was right here, now it's over here. This, if I set it at 5, I can keep the spot here and make it smaller or bigger. And I find that function and that level of control to be quite pleasing. Now then we get a power node. And this is another way to do contrast. So I'll hold down S, noise contrast, and we will put the base. We will set this to 1 for now. And then from here, another constant bias scale. It's identical to this one right here. So I'm just going to copy and paste. Place it in there. And then I'm going to put a multiply node. S for noise strength. For now, I'll put this at 0.1. And that is the noise. So here we will saturate it because it doesn't hurt to saturate. And before we add it all to this so that you can see what it does, place it in here. I'm gonna hit save. Let it do its thing. And now you can see that it makes its decision based off of noise. So if I come here, to make this easy, we're gonna put this at 5,000. That way we got some nice big spots here. If we come here to the noise, if I put it to 2, you're not going to see much because it's not moving it very much. 50. I don't know if you noticed at that time. I'll put it back to 0. And now 500. It's moving it. Change shape. 50. 500. 1200. It's changing the shape. Just as I said. Now if we come here to the negative slider, like I had pointed out, if we put this at, say, 4,500, that shape that I really liked, that I wanted it to stay, is gone. 5,000, it's back. If I come here to the positive slider and put you at 10, that was an immense amount of change. Clearly 10 is not needed. So put it back to 1, now 2, now 3, now 4. And if I change this to 0, 1, 2, so it changed the noise from the dark gray to the light gray to the light gray to the yellow. Now if I put this back to -1, I put U back to 1. Now if I come here, -2, -5, it's making it smaller. And it's keeping what I wanted. Now the contrast, 0, looks terrible. 1, looks pretty good. And then you have 0.5, this noise strength. 0, there's no noise happening whatsoever now. If you go to 1, there's the noise and all of its glory and beauty. So 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, it's adding more of the math that we did to create more of a variation. So now, because again, we want it to be added to it, copy, paste, click on this here, add, just like this. Okay, you're not wanting to do your thing. Come over here to this. Place it in here. Hit save. And let it do its math. And there you see a massive amount of change. So if I put this back down, what was it, 500? Still too big, 100. Heck, let's put it to 10. It's helped to start hiding the tiling. It's not perfect, but it's certainly doing quite a bit. So I bring this to 2. It's hiding the tiling even more. And this is quite literally the cheapest way. Now, it's not always ideal, especially because of the extremes and how it's working, but I put the extremes the way it is so that it is easier to see what it's doing. So I'll put this back to 1, change this back to 500, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is how the noise gets changed, or the colors get changed as beautifully as it did. So as a recap, this right here is to just control the color of the texture in general. So texture, color, control. That's all this does. Now this one, as you noticed, as we experienced together, does a significant amount of change to the landscape as a whole, not to the texture. It is determined based off of the world position and the slope. So for this one, we'll bring it here like this. Hit C if you didn't know how I did that last time. Landscape, color, control. Now obviously I didn't do it as efficiently as I did with the textures, but now at this point, before you go any further, you need to click on all these, give it a group type, and then prioritize where you want to see these within the group. You know, like how I did here, because now we're getting just a jumbled up mess. So how I did it here, so set this up exactly how you want, and I will see you on Thursday, where we will go over albedo, roughness, and normals, so that we can alter, alter those textures, those texture samples to work for our project how we'd like it to work. So thank you for watching. I appreciate everything, and I hope to see you guys on Thursday.